I'm happy, delighted to share a little bit on how we turned trainers from professors, especially, into coaches. Um, and I think it's very important to keep in mind that the people who apply for programs such as this, they are already of an independent streak. So I've named this coaching cats, no, herding cats, but they're smart, ambitious, and willful, these cats. So they want to do what they want to do, and then they just want you to step in exactly where they need you, and not so much more than that. And if they want you more than that, you actually need to back off. And I think that was one of the big learnings. So the goals when you are coaching rather than being a professor or teacher is that of course you need to learn what it takes to be a good startup coach. Uh, I was doing the trainers on this because I have coached more than 500 startups in fundraising, market entry, and pitching. But also note where you as a coach might need to know more. It might be in your specific field for when it comes to startups, small businesses rather than big businesses. It might be the coaching methodology or something else, or how to reach out to the other coaches and the other trainers so that they can take over. And then seek out that support or training before you get started as a coach. The next part is understanding your team. We had some, especially the WeFi students, who had professional experience, but most of the other students had no professional experience. So it was important to keep in mind that for the students, all of this was new as well. They had bright minds and empty pockets. And I used to use the picture of them being a piranha fish rather than a shark, meaning that they would take nibbles off a big market rather than try to eat all of it. But also that they would have to move differently. I'll get back to that in a second. So the newness of it all, they were still getting to know both their main subject, their industry, and their own team. So as a coach, one of our main tasks were to ask and help them ask questions that would help them define themselves and their own strengths and their weaknesses, and then play to their strengths and avoid having to deal with most of their weaknesses or find ways of outsourcing it. But also help them ask questions that would allow them to learn better, learn more, and learn faster. The last thing was that being new is not necessarily a weakness. So being new to a field might mean that you will see things that people who are too used to the field do not see. And if you can help them build confidence in this perspective, then that can become a potential strength. The empty pockets we mentioned a couple of times, but that is part of being a new startup. If you're raising money at this point in time, normally you would either do it through grant money, which takes a lot of work on its own and time that they did not have, or you would give away a lot of equity and hence decision-making power in your own company. So what do? Normally, you have extra energy, you have extra time and creativity, and that is the resource that you will have to use to compensate your lack of funds. Then also play to your own passion, play to your own conviction, and use that to attract talent that can help them build their company to a place where they can get funding. I promised we would speak a little bit to the piranhas versus sharks. And in this picture, the shark would be the big corporates, the dominant players in the industry. So a new company will naturally be much, much smaller, but also more agile and capable of changing to the current currents. And they need to know where to pick their battles, which small tranches of the market they can enter and target first. As you can probably hear, I'm from a business background more than everything else. So what do you need to be able to do as a coach to make this happen? Well, first of all, you have to be present and capable of showing empathy. Put yourself in their shoes. They've signed up for a course, and that course, for most of the universities, I think it was less than 5 ECTS. But for most of the students, they said that this course took more time and more energy than all the other courses combined. For some of them, it was a surprise. For year 2, especially, I think we've gotten pretty good at saying that it was severely under-nominated in terms of the commitment that we expected. But also, as a coach, you would only be in touch with your team between every 2 weeks and maybe every month. Sometimes some coaches would go above and beyond, but your team had to be able to motivate them even when you were not speaking with them. So you kind of had to help them help themselves and be able to self-sustain in between your sessions. Also, help them to develop a challenge versus obstacle mindset so that every time they ran into something, it would become an opportunity to learn and grow. Being present, that means that before you sign up to be a coach, make sure that you have the extra time and that you enjoy that process, because it will be frustrating at times seeing your team run their head against the wall or keep on trying to do something that doesn't work, or mismanaged somehow. This will happen. And as a coach, you're not the leader of the team. You're not part of the team. You have to allow them to fall flat on their faces and kiss asphalt, even though it frustrates you and that you want to help them avoid this mistake. But that taste of asphalt, that taste of pavement, is exactly what will help them not fall the next time. So that also means that sometimes you would have to, if you're doing the coaching, you listen, and then the only question might be, and wait, and wait for uncomfortably long until they give you longer and better answers. So you are not allowed to propose solutions. You can only ask questions, and even better, get them to ask each other questions that can point them to a new future. Motivation. So, of course, motivate them, mean applaud them for the things they did. Every time they take initiative, applaud them, give them praise, but also teach them to give each other praise and to applaud themselves and celebrate their small victories. So you basically want to show the way here a little bit until they start doing it themselves. You can also ask them about like what kind of victory rituals do they have? How do they celebrate when they do something right? I talked a lot about using yardstones, very small goals rather than milestones, so they can get more motivational energy from achieving smaller goals and keep the momentum going. Because as soon as that momentum stalls, if they lose that flame, it becomes very hard to reignite. And then the other one, there's no failure as such. There's just another opportunity to learn. Growth, that's the whole point of this. The whole point of this program is to help the students, the trainees, learn how to grow. And that even if this business fails, they will learn so much about how businesses are built that they could become greater employees or better business builders in the future. So just remember also whenever they come back after 1 or 2 months and they feel frustrated and they're like, okay, but the frustration you feel now is due to you having encountered a challenge you didn't even know existed a month ago. You've already grown a lot just to know that this problem is there. And then maybe also point to say, hey, which other resources could you find? Which other strategies are out there? What kind of internet searches have you done? What kind of YouTube challenge have you looked for? What kind of academic knowledge have you looked into? These kind of questions where they can seek out new ways of getting around the problem. My worst pun. A momentous moment is, of course, the first customer. And you want to keep your eyes on that moment because that's a real litmus test of whether or not what they're doing works. If somebody wants to pay for it, then you have a solution that can be viable and sustainable, not only in the sense of climate, but as a business solution. They're not building NGOs, they're not building charities, and they're not building a public service agency. So the first customer or people who could become customers they're one and all. This is the one true ring. It's what they're going to be chasing for the entirety of this program. And the reason for it is not because the money is important, it's because the validation that someone is willing to use this solution and pay for it or invest time in it is so important for their future journey. Oh, sorry, I already said most of this. But yeah, the first customer validates the market need, it tests your value proposition, and your first customer becomes your ambassador, your first disciple, basically, who can go out and say how great your product is. So that was it. I hope I was within my time frame. Open to questions. And if you don't have one, then maybe try imagining yourself being a coach a few months from now and ask yourself, what question would be really hard to answer if a startup asks you that question.